operation. Well, good morning, and thanks for watching the Market Day Report. I'm Janet Adkisson. The omnibus spending bill, a giant piece of legislation that funds the government for the rest of the year, needs to be passed by midnight tomorrow to keep the government open. Joining us now from the AFBF Washington headquarters is economist Veronica Nye. Veronica, thanks for joining us once again. So do you expect the spending bill to be passed on time?
Well, this has been a hotly debated topic in D.C. for weeks. We've been waiting for the text. We keep saying any day now, but the text was finally released yesterday. We do anticipate a passage on Friday, and if it's not on Friday, we'll get a couple of days of a short-term agreement, and then they'll get back to work on Monday or Tuesday and finally get this thing over the finish line.
So, Veronica, what all does this spending bill actually include?
Goodness, I think the shorter list is what does this spending bill not include. But for farmers and ranchers, an important element is that it includes a fix to the 199A provision of the tax bill that was passed in December.
So tell us a little bit about this fix. I mean, does it take it back to what it was previously, or is it still tweaked just a little bit?
Well, the provision that we're talking about allows farmers and ranchers to take a 20% deduction of their net farm income on their tax return if they operate their businesses as pass-throughs. But there was a small problem in the language in that it created some disparity between co-ops and non-co-ops. And in doing so would have incentivized farmers to sell their products to co-ops in order to reap a larger tax benefit. But the provision that has been included in the omnibus bill, in large part, completely fixes that issue and will allow farmers to, again, make deliveries based on the market rather than the tax code.
Now, Veronica, the error would have impacted all co-ops, so why do the grain folks care so much as opposed to dairy, cotton, and, of course, others?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when you dig into the data on co-ops that's available through USDA, we find that over 40% of all of the marketing co-ops in the U.S. are grain and oilseed co-ops. And then when you dig a little bit deeper into that data, we find that there's a lot of competition between co-ops and private companies or non-co-ops in the primary grain-producing states. So, for example, among the top 5 grain-producing states, there's one state that co-ops only represent about 10% of the grain grown in that state. Another represents 90%. But for those other 3 states, those I states that we all know so well for corn and soybeans, co-ops represent, or they purchase, somewhere between 35 and 50% of the grain grown in those states. So a provision in the tax bill that would have incentivized sales to co-ops or no non-co-ops, if it had been the opposite, would have significantly had an impact on the amount of grain sold through the different channels in the primary grain-producing states of the U.S.
All right. Well, Veronica, thank you very much for joining us once again. AFBF economist Veronica Nye.